Welcome to Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast that brings Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
This episode of the Sports Spectrum podcast with Patriots wide receiver Jordan Matthews is brought to you in part by Compassion International. Go to compassion.com/sportspectrum. $38 a month. You can sponsor a child and bring hope to a child by sponsoring with Compassion. I promise you it's the best $38 you will spend every single month. And listen, we're all looking for ways to give back, ways to help, ways to be charitable and joyful with our giving. Compassion.com, Compassion International is the place to be. You're talking about bringing hope and a future to children in need, releasing a child from poverty. That's the difference you can make by signing up at compassion.com/sportspectrum to sponsor a child today. Go right there, compassion.com/sportspectrum. I promise you won't regret it. $38 a month. Sponsor a child today. Our guest on the podcast today, New England Patriots wide receiver Jordan Matthews, joins us. Jordan, of course, was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles in the second round of the 2014 NFL Draft, 42nd player taken overall, out of Vanderbilt, where he went to college and had 262 career receptions, 3,759 yards, and setting an SEC and Vanderbilt school record. His 24 career touchdowns are also the best in school history. And he played his first 3 seasons with the Eagles, and then about a year ago, he was traded, surprisingly so, I think, from a lot of people, to the Buffalo Bills, and he played that 1 year in Buffalo. And then this year, in April of 2018, he signed a 1-year deal with the New England Patriots. He's married to his wife, Shayna. They have a baby on the way, a little boy on the way. Shayna is a soccer player, and a lot going on for Jordan. Just a very generous guy with his time, certainly with this podcast, but in serving others. He just finished his charity softball tournament that he did, and we're going to talk to him about that, as well as just a lot of the good things that he's got going on in his life. His hunger and thirst for God is really evident, and I think you guys will really like Jordan's outlook, Jordan's passion for Jesus, and just his desire to live for him first before anything else. So let's get right to this interview. I think you'll love him. New England Patriots wide receiver Jordan Matthews joins us here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. Take a listen. Jordan, welcome to the show.
Man, what's up, Jason? Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's great to talk to you, Jordan. Glad you're here on the podcast. Excited to talk to you about your journey. I know you have a baby on the way. You married your wife, Shayna. Lots of good things going on with that, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But first, I want to just within the past few days of me and you talking here, you had your celebrity softball tournament down at Vanderbilt where you went to college. And you just came back from that. Tell us about how it went and why you're so passionate about this event and how it's helping others.
Yeah, first of all, I will say it went really well. We were actually able to double what we raised from last year as far as the money we were able to donate to the 2 organizations that we're working with. 2 organizations that we work with for the charity game that we donate all the proceeds to are the YWCA and Amend. Both of those organizations are like on the front lines on the fight against domestic violence against women and children. And so the YWCA, they actually have a women's shelter, 51 beds, the largest women's shelter in Nashville, Tennessee, the YWCA in Nashville. And they still need more beds, which is a scary thing and a sad thing to know about. But at the end of the day, we know that domestic violence is a problem that affects everyone. So we want to be able to provide these women with shelter in a good place to be able to stay whenever something bad or detrimental happens to them. I think a lot of people are very misguided when it comes to their information, the way they view domestic violence. A lot of these women come into relationships thinking that they're good, safe relationships. They start sharing income. They trust someone, and then trust is greased, and now they're left with, like, nowhere to go. And people think, oh, well, just leave. Well, a lot of them, they just leave, they'll have nothing. So we want to empower them to be able to leave, but also give them a place where they can go and call home. And so that's on the shelter side. And on Amend is actually an organization that taking the time to teach young men about the importance of real manhood and how to treat women. I think a lot of times we hear women talk about, people say, oh, well, why did she put herself in this situation? Why did she go back to that guy? Or why was she at this club drunk? Like, that's a bad situation to put herself in. The first thing women will always say is, well, why don't you teach your boys to respect the women? And I completely agree. And that's why we also want to be able to fund the men in any type of functions they want to hold or things that they want to do to be able to bring young men in to talk to them about the importance of treating women right and that everybody deserves respect because they are a child of God. So it's really near and dear to my heart because I have great women in my life, my mom, to my wife, to my cousins, to my aunt, to my grandma. So I want to make sure that as men, we know that in this society, we need to be protecting the women, in our society, and that we need to be respecting them. And it really means a lot.
What about the competitive side of you playing softball now? And how did that go? I know you're an athlete, you're competitive. How did your team do? How did you do?
Well, we won. I will say that. It's crazy because last year we had a basketball game, and what we kind of did was we did people in the community versus guys versus former Vanderbilt athletes. One thing I like to do with my games is I always like to incorporate people from the Nashville community that are doing amazing work. Like, I'm not going to lie, I'm not always big on just putting celebrities on a stage, and having them kind of, share what they know or share their faith and things like that. Because I don't feel like that's the way God wants to do things. I always feel like he didn't call the qualified per se. He qualified the called. And so I like to bring in people that nobody knows and put them on a team with Jay Cutler or Jordan Rogers, who's on SEC Network, or Chris Williams, who was a 6-year NFL vet. I love doing that because then it makes people think, oh, who is that guy? And then they want to build conversation, and actually we can tear down that bell, the whole superstar thing. So last year we did Vandy Legends versus people in the community. This year I put guys in the community on teams with Vanderbilt guys, but we did offensive Vandy Legends versus defense. And we crushed the defense. I mean, I think we did like 8-3 or something. It wasn't even close. I tell you who the sleepers are when it comes to baseball. Quarterbacks, man. For some reason, quarterbacks can hit the baseball. Austin Carr-Samuels and Jordan Rogers, I mean, they were amazing. They were the two quarterbacks I played with when I was in college. Both of them they played first and second in the home run derby. And then Austin hit like a 3-run bomb, like in like the 4th inning that put us ahead, and we never looked back.
I tell you, in softball is so much fun too, because it's literally just like being a little kid, and you don't have to be a professional. You just get together with the fellas, or bring some of the ladies in, and you just have some fun, right?
Exactly, man. So fun. It's lighthearted. It's still competitive. I don't know. It's a really fun deal. Like I said, we did basketball, and that was great too. But I really think that baseball has the ability. Softball has the ability to give us some longevity with this event. And then, like I said, when we're old and gray, we'll probably change it to the Vandy Legends Golf Challenge or something when we got some arthritis building up or something. So, but we hope to do this for a long time.
That's great. We're talking to Jordan Matthews here, the New England Patriots wide receiver, on the Sports Spectrum podcast. And that may sound a little weird to our listeners. It may even sound a little weird to you, even though you've only been with them for a few months. But you're an NFL player, and so much of what this league is about, unfortunately, is that acronym "not for long." You can be a witness for that now as you get ready for the 2018 season. This is your 3rd team in 3 years now with the Patriots. You signed a 1-year deal back in April. What's that transition been like now that you're with a new team with New England?
Oh, it's been great, man. I felt like when we were making the decision on where to go, I wanted really the Spirit to talk to me and my wife about where it felt like it was where we would be best used, for ministry. And, I visited a couple of teams, and, when I got to come to New England, I got to sit down with the chaplain, Jack Easterby. And, we sat in there for like an hour, just talking about the gospel and talking about, decision making and what was best and everything. And Jack didn't put any pressure on me to come to the Patriots, but he just prayed with me and he told me, about the locker room and what to expect. And when I talked to my wife about it, she was on board, man. We felt like it was the perfect place to go to grow, as a man. And I felt like, knowing that I'm having a son soon, I wanted to be in the place where I felt like I would be the most uncomfortable. I wanted to be in the place where I'd be stretched the most, where every single day I know for a fact I would need to call on the Lord to get me through it. And I don't think there's a better place in the NFL to do that than in New England. So it's been an awesome experience so far. The locker room is full of amazing guys. The coaches, everyone, they're really committed to their craft and to the game. And so, but yeah, man, it's been great for me. It's been really good for, my quiet time with the Lord. I know every day that I get up, it's going to be a grind. A lot's going to be expected of me. And so I know for a fact I can never just roll out of bed and just say, all right, let's just, go take on the day. No, I really need to make sure I'm getting up at like 5:20, 5 o'clock, so I can spend up to 30 minutes just in quiet time, because I know that I'm going to need that recharge in order to make sure that I'm the best I can be in that building.
You said something interesting. You said part of going to New England was because you knew it would be uncomfortable. So many of us as humans, much less Christians, we don't like being uncomfortable, and yet the Bible calls us to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Why was that so important to you? Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, what's crazy is, like, I was actually just listening to a sermon. One of my favorite pastors is Francis Chan, and the funny thing is he probably would hate for me to say that, but he just is. I don't care, But it's just funny, though. He said, why would we need the comforter if we're always comfortable? It's like, if we're always in situations where, honestly, we could accomplish something or be able to do a task, apart from the Holy Spirit, then why do we even need him? And that really resonated with me, because in a field where there's so many people who have everything taken care of, you really don't see a lot of true faith exercised all the time. It's always like, okay, when I give, I'm going to make sure I give away the clothes that I don't wear anymore. It's like, well, that's not sacrifice. When I go to a team, like, I'm going to make sure I get the most money because I want my kids to have it easier than I had it. And I think that's one of those things that sounds great, but I'm like, man, like, when you didn't have everything, that's probably when you relied on God the most. And I can't think of anything that I want my children to have more than a dependency on the Lord. So why would I want to make things just super comfortable and easy on them? And so, when I looked at the opportunity with the Patriots, like, I really didn't even think about money. I didn't think about, location, proximity to Nashville, where me and my wife stay in the off season. It was all about, where are we going to be stretched? Like, where are we going to be the most dependent on the Lord? Like, where will we not be able to run, to earthly things, or to be able to rely on things that we can touch? And it's been great. I mean, it's done wonders for just our relationship, our transparency with each other, our conversation, and just, I don't know, even our discipling of others. Like, I don't feel like there's that fakeness when we go and we speak to people, and it's like, okay, I'm this NFL player, everything's taken care of for me, now let me tell you how to live your life. It's like, no, like, things aren't always easy. So I'm actually here with you. Like, let's pray together. Let's actually have real moments. And so it's been great for me, and I can't wait to see what the Lord does next this transition.
Yeah, you're going to be moving from, a couple years ago, you played with a rookie in Carson Wentz, and then through Buffalo, and now you're with Tom Brady. So on the field, it'll be quite the transition, going from maybe a younger core of quarterbacks to, maybe the GOAT in Tom Brady. What has that been like? I know you haven't probably spent a lot of time with Tom, but just being around him and sort of the leader and the professional that he is. I know maybe just that mini camp and training camp's coming up in a couple weeks. Tell me about that.
I think it's good for your humility. I know for me, one, like, Carson, when I was with the Eagles, Carson just being like my guy, being one of my good friends and everything. You know how it is, man. Sometimes you talk a lot to your friends. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. But sometimes I'll feel that pull from the Lord, like saying, like, Jordan, like, stop talking all the time. Like, take time to listen. Take time to actually, like, sit down and see what I'm doing. And when you're a new guy in a environment that's had success, and nothing that you've done up to this point in your NFL career matters. Like when Carson came, I'd have been coming off of 2 years with 800 plus yards and 8 touchdowns each year. So there's that cool to kind of be like, yo, throw me the ball, every once in a while, or some of that cockiness can kind of come in. But what are you going to tell Tom Brady? Tom Brady with Randy Moss, like nothing I do is going to be that impressive. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, shut up, come in, do your job, and humble yourself. And that's what I think has kind of been, the best thing. I talk way less, and I think that's a great thing, for me moving forward in my maturity.
And you recently married Shayna and had the ceremony this year and now pregnant, expecting your first child. You said you're having a son and you're getting ready for training camp. Tell me about this season of life and becoming a dad soon, and just where you are with everything with your marriage and with what that's been like for you.
It's been awesome, man. I love my wife so much. I mean, Shayna's she's my best friend. First off, I mean, I joke with her all the time, and I mean, we literally hang out 24/7, and like, I knew she was my best friend. Like, there's some, like, times we like dating and, something happens and you still will call your boys up first. Like, dude, this is, like anything that would happen, like, I always wanted to tell her first.
Yeah.
And I knew, I was like, oh my gosh, she's one of the boys now. It's crazy. Like, that's like, she is everything to me. And now she's turned me into that guy. Like, I'm like 25. And now I go to all my 25-year-old friends. I'm like, man, you need to go ahead and get married. It's great. But, like I'm kind of like that guy now that's like, I love being like married to her. I just want all my friends to experience a type of relationship and friendship like I had with my wife. So it's always good, man. Like I said, I took her on every interview with me when I went to the team. She was right there with me. Kind of feeling everything out, talking to the coaches, praying with me on decision making. And then, having the baby coming, it's been a fun process. My whole life, my whole time just basically dating her, it's always just been me and her. And now every time I see her, she's got this belly. And I'm like, dude, it's like a little alien inside of you. It's kind of weird. And it's just fun always to kind of, just kind of rubber belly and just kind of talk about how, like, man, like, when we met each other, we had no idea that in 5 years, we would be waking up together, going to sleep together, praying every morning, every night together, having a baby, having a dog. We're just so blessed. And yeah, I couldn't thank God enough for just, the partner that he's blessed me with in Shayna.
We'll have more of our conversation with Jordan Matthews, Patriots wide receiver, in just a moment, but want to take a second to tell you about how you can become a part of the Sports Spectrum family. It's $36 for an entire year, and you become a member of Sports Spectrum. Just go to sportspectrum.com, click the sign up button, become a member, and what that does is that helps you fund things like this podcast. It helps you fund things like the content that we're releasing on our website, on our YouTube channel, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of those places. That's what your $36 a year actually goes towards. And you also get our magazine. Now, we put out a quarterly magazine. The magazine has been a part of Sports Spectrum for over 30 years, and we're still releasing a magazine each quarter. It's a wonderful magazine. It's a great tool to hand out, especially at a youth group setting or a men's ministry. It's really a neat magazine, lots of stories, expanding on what you hear on the podcast, wonderful pictures, just a beautiful looking magazine, a beautiful feel to it. I suggest you go to sportspectrum.com and sign up. It's $36. An entire year gets you a membership with the Sports Spectrum family. Go to sportspectrum.com, partner with us, become a member of our family, and check it out. I think you guys will love it. Now back to our conversation with Jordan Matthews, Patriots wide receiver, right here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. You've obviously talked a lot about your faith. I'm always curious when I talk to athletes where their faith started and was kind of grounded when they made Jesus Lord and a priority. When did that take shape for you?
I've always had, what's crazy? I've always grown up in a church environment, growing up in Alabama. There's a church every 2 blocks. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it's not like you're going to know Jesus, and it ain't like you hadn't heard of him by the time you're 3. So, it wasn't until, though, I would say probably my second year in the NFL that I actually came to really the end of, myself in the sense of football was really the God of my life. When I was in college, I could play up the whole, I'll go to church on Sunday, I'll pray with my team before the game, I'll wear a cross necklace. But pleasing Jesus and making time with him a priority in my life, making that a priority in my life wasn't really that big of a deal. It was always about, okay, how can I be the best football player I can be? What do I need to do? It wasn't really about hearing God's voice and where he was leading me. And so about my second year in the NFL, I had a great rookie year. Then my second year in the NFL, I was struggling up to mid-season. And then I went to autograph signing, and I did the same autograph signing the year before. And the year before, the place was packed. Everybody was there trying to get my autograph. And the next year, only 2 people showed up. And it was funny to me because, okay, I usually think that everybody, a lot of people, come to Jesus moment. Oh, I got drunk and almost died, and then I saw the light. You know what I'm saying? And those are great, but I think my parents are glad that mine was a little bit more boring. But that's really what happened, man. I sat there and I watched this thing called the NFL and my football career not be able to carry the weight of my joy. Because the second my performance slipped, the way I was treated, the way that I was looked at completely changed. And I was like, I don't want to be glued to this my whole life. I don't want to constantly have to be held down by whether I do good on the field to be the determining factor of whether I have joy in my life, whether I'm able to go home and be a consistent husband to my wife. If I have a bad game, if I had a bad game, I would go out and drink and want to go talk to girls. If I had a good game, I would want to go drink and go talk to girls. It was there was so much dysfunction. And, I was like, man, I'm really looking for a peace and a consistent joy. And I was like, then the only way I knew to find that was tap into the thing that never changed, and that was the Lord. And so I started coming clean to a lot of people in my life, my parents, some of my friends, and I started talking to some really great pastors, Pastor Kyle of Connect Church in New Jersey, in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and who else is it? Pastor Ted. Pastor Ted Windsor, that's my guy, and he's the pastor of the Family Church in Camden. And I started spending time around these guys, and they just really started challenging me in my faith, praying for me, and then being the example. And then when I hooked up with Trey Burton probably was one of the biggest, that dude lived for pleasing the Lord, and he was he kept me accountable. And I think so many times we always look at okay, if I'm going to disciple somebody, I don't want to be too mean. I don't want to be too hard on them. Man, I was so glad that Trey called me out on the stuff that I was doing. And he did not let me slip. He never was like, oh, it'll be okay. No, if I was slipping, he would call me out. He's like, you know better. And I'm so thankful for him. And then I was able to just grow in the community, man. Chris Maragos, Zach Ertz, and Carson Wentz comes in and got drafted. Then Nick Foles, Jordan Hicks. And before I knew it, my circle of friends were all either engaged, married, but all of them were believers. And so now I had this community, and then it was and I just got into the point where it was I didn't just want to wake up in the morning, read one Bible verse, and then go on my day. I wanted to spend all day with the Lord and with God's people, and it changed my life forever, man. I just hope all my friends and family can experience that same joy that I have now.
Tell me about what that Brotherhood means to you, that team. I know you're not with them anymore, and it had to be tough to watch them, or maybe it wasn't tough, but watching a lot of those guys go and do what they did and winning the Super Bowl against the team you now play for. But tell me about that Brotherhood sort of developed. I know that you weren't there last year, but you could tell that there was something bigger going on with this team, even when 2016 was taking place, when Carson arrived. Tell me about that Brotherhood and what they mean to you.
Well, I would say, like, you know, as far as, like, talking about, like, the past, I know right now, like, the organization I'm with, we can't go too much into that, like, you know, as far as, like, on the field and stuff.
Sure.
But I will say that this weekend, so looking toward the future, this weekend I'm going back for Carson's wedding. I'm not going to say where it is, but I'm going to Carson's wedding, and I'm spending time with all the guys and everything, and I know for a fact that we're not going to miss a beat. You know, like, how sad would it be that every time you got around your friends, all you did was talk about your job?
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know that surface level conversation that you get into with people when Christ is in the center of relationships, and then it's like, okay, who has what? Whose kids are better at this sport than that? What are you wearing? And when that's not the center, you know, like, okay, when we get together, like, what's going to be the topic of our conversation? Hey, man, what's God been doing in your life, man? You know, or we can just joke, man. It's just easy going. I mean, I give Carson the hardest time. And I seem like, dude, you are ugly, man. Like, I don't know why this girl's marrying you. Like, we can just joke, man, and have a good time. And it's just funny. It's just so cool to, like, I think people, when they think of, like, football players coming together and hanging out, they automatically assume, you know, that all we're doing is swatting our wells and stuff like that. And I think that is such a situation with a lot of guys. But I know with those guys that I'm close to, that when we come together, man, like, we might talk about football maybe one time. But other than that, I mean, we're just going to be joking around, having a good time, and just, you know, being thankful for what the Lord's done, man. It's going to be an awesome feeling to be hanging out with those guys.
Couple more questions here with Jordan Matthews from the Patriots. Give us a glimpse on your daily disciplines that you have. You kind of mentioned it subtly, talking about waking up with your wife and praying every day. But tell me about how, because I think it is a discipline in order to stay fed in the Lord every day. Tell me about what that looks like for you.
Yeah, I think routine is somewhat good. I think that I think when you're talking about a routine, like when it comes to spending time with the Lord, I think everybody needs that. You know, I think, you know, obviously we talked about it earlier. We don't want to get in a situation where we're comfortable, but man, like, you know, for me, let's say on a regular workout day. So yesterday, I'll work out. I'll wake up at like 5:30, and I take 30 minutes every morning. I'm going through the Bible in a year, so I'll read a Psalm, I'll read a part of the New Testament. I'm still in Matthew, and then I'll read somewhere in the Old Testament, and I'm in Job right now. And so I'll read that, and then I have a journal, and then I'll write in my journal, and then I'll just kind of ask you questions, and then I'll kind of just write what I think, you know, about that day, or I'll just have some morning reflection on what I read. And then I'll listen to a sermon. And I've even got to the point now where I'll probably listen to more sermons than music. But, you know, listen to a sermon every single morning, where it's Francis Chan. I love Tim Keller. I've listened to some Mark Driscoll recently. But regardless of whoever the pastor is, you know, even some things that other guys send me, I just try to listen to a word from the Lord, I guess, through a minister. And then I'll go train. I'll train from 8 till about 10. Then I'll go and do recovery after that from like 10 to 11. Then I'll go back home, eat lunch. Then after I eat lunch, I'll rest for a little while, read, and then I'll go back to the training facility again at around 4, and then I do conditioning from 4 to 5. And then after that, usually have something in at night, some type of function. Like last night, I spoke to some of the juniors and seniors about entering the NFL draft on a panel, and tonight I'm speaking at FCA. So usually I leave my night kind of available to just be kind of spontaneous, whether it's like going and spending time with a friend that we haven't seen, going and sharing somewhere, maybe going on a date with my wife. We always have to leave the nighttime kind of free to make sure that, we give ourselves some room for flexibility just to kind of do, whatever we feel like God's calling us to do.
I know when Nick Foles won Super Bowl MVP, and during that time when he was playing in the Super Bowl, he was asked about after football, and he talked about going to seminary and becoming a pastor. You said you've been doing some speaking. I wonder for you, when football is done, is ministry something you want to be a part of?
Yeah, I definitely think so. We know this, Jace. Obviously, like, ministry is like, you don't got to be on the pulpit to be considered a minister. And
yes,
I take that really seriously because, man, it's like, we have so many great pastors out here that have taken up the mantle and, taking on that task. I think is a really hard task that a lot of people don't realize. Like, you don't realize how hard it is to preach every Sunday, sometimes 2 times a Sunday for every week of every year. You think of a guy like Tim Keller who's preached to like Redeemer for like over 30 years, like that is no small feat, and so we've got so many guys that do that on that scale. And so it's like, I think early on, I definitely want to look into ministry kind of on a smaller scale, maybe, college ministry, inner city stuff wherever I live. And just kind of really touching lives, as far as like in small groups. I think that there's a way to kind of speak to large groups of people. But I honestly think the most effective way is when you say, okay, I'm going to take about 12 to 20 people and really just pour everything I have into them, getting to know them, spending time with them, getting in the Word together, helping them with whatever needs they may have. And yeah, I think it was 2 years ago now, maybe a year ago, my chaplain here at Vanderbilt, his name's Barry Brown, he gave me the opportunity to be able to go through the book of James with seniors on Vanderbilt's football team. And it was like a big deal for me because I was like, man, this is awesome. So it was during the off season, it was in January, February, and March. And he let me every single Tuesday night, I'm pretty sure Tuesday or Wednesday night, I was able to go through the book of James with these seniors. And the response was incredible. But here was my favorite thing about it. I had to go back early because I had to get an MRI on my knee. My knee was still giving me problems. So I had to leave early. So I had the guys come over to my house like a Monday and say, hey, guys, I have to go early. We're going to do one last Bible study. We're not going to end up getting through the full book. I think we were like in chapters 3 or 5. But I was like, I really want to do this last study with you guys, man. And I hate to have to leave, blase, all that stuff. Well, I leave, and in the group me, they're texting back and forth, and what I realized was they were still keeping the Bible study going.
I love that.
Yeah, and it's just like, that's the best part about it because, how sad would it be if the whole Bible study was linked to me having to be there? Like, then it's not really, then that defeats the whole purpose of studying the Bible. It's like, this is so that you guys can have a true relationship with God. And, and it was so funny. In the group meet, they started doing these, so we would have these little challenges, right? So I would say, okay, at the end of the Bible study, we'd have a call to action. Because if there's one thing I sometimes can't stand, like we can't just sit around and read the Bible and then just leave and not actually say, okay, let's do something. And we're not going to earn our salvation by doing it, but God's called us to act still. And let's work out our faith. And so we'd have a call to action after every Bible study. And so one day we said we would fast from social media. And we fast from social media, and that'd be the first thing we talk about when we get back in there. And we're like, okay, what did you guys see? What did you guys learn, from it, from spending time with the Lord when you would usually want to get on Twitter or Instagram. One time we all fasted from secular music. So instead of every time we wanted to put on like hip hop or anything, we put on worship music and stuff. Then we say, okay, we're going to try and serve one person every single day. So we would do stuff like that. And then after I left, they kept that going. And one time they had a thing, they said every single day we're going to text in here something that God's doing and the way I'm going to respond. Like, and they did that. These are college guys, like college male football players. Like, how safe and how good would you feel if you're a parent and you know your daughter is on campus with guys that are doing these types of things?
Absolutely. Listen, I mean, that's just awesome. I mean, that's what we're called to do, right?
Exactly. And it's not even that hard. Like, I think to me, here's, the best part about it, Jason, is like, there's no pressure on me. So if I go like speak or something and you're telling me, hey, Jordan, I want you to speak to these kids about how to be successful. I'm going to be like, okay, well, I'm 6'3", I'm black, and I can jump and catch. Like, I was going to probably be able to play football regardless. Like, let's just be really honest. But, I'm like, but I still have to talk about myself. I have to basically sell you on me and how great I am. That's a lot of pressure because I was the only person created like me. So how can I convince other people to be Jordan Matthews? Like, that makes no sense. But it's like, if all I have to do is walk into a room and say, okay, let's talk about the Creator. Let's talk about what Jesus has done. And that's it. We're not going to focus on anything else. We're just going to focus on Christ. There's no pressure in that. There's peace in that. Like, you can literally come in, pray with these guys, open up the Bible, read the Word, kind of say what you feel like the Lord's telling you, ask them questions, see where they see that in their lives, close the Bible, and leave. And it's like, you can just go right home. You don't have to be like stressing over, okay, now I got to make sure I keep up this person. No, it's like, it's all about Jesus. And so, I love it. It's just, there's no pressure. It's just, man, so good. And you always leave like your hair's on fire because, you're in it with those guys. So it's always a good deal.
That's really good. Just a few more questions here. I want to ask you this because I told you I would ask you this when we met in June in person for the first time. And I saw you asking this question to a bunch of people. And I loved how you're just outgoing and you just want to, you're inquisitive, which I really think is cool. And I told you I would turn around and ask you this on the podcast. So here it goes. You get to have dinner with 3 people that are alive today. Who are those people and why?
I got you. Okay. So my 3 people. Francis Chan.
Yeah.
Number 1. It's like my guy. Love everything that he's about. Barack Obama. I love Barack because one, I have to say the one biggest thing, growing up, I was very fortunate. I had a father in my life who treated my mom well, went to work, and made sure that we were in the Word and that we were up and going to church. Mm. And we have so many people that complain about our generation and guys and everything, and some of them have good complaints. It's like, man, how many of these guys, I'm just going to even speak to my community as far as the young black male community. It's like, how many of these young black guys actually have a brother that looks just like them that's actually doing things the right way? Mm. And so aside from the politics and all that stuff that everybody gets caught up in, I'm so impressed with how Barack treats Michelle, treats his daughters, and walks with an authority but still a humility on the platform that he was given. Because other than maybe 1 or 2 sitcoms, man, black kids did not have a lot of great black role models kind of to look up to. Yeah. And on TV, we're portrayed bad. And music, we portray ourselves bad, which is not good. And so I was like, man, this guy, Barack, man, has a lot on his shoulders. I just really like how he handled business. So I would love to sit down and talk with him about that, some of the pressures on his life, and kind of ask him questions and stuff. And then my third one, if you always like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. It'll be Kanye West. Kanye West. And I always say Kanye, and people are like, dude, why do you even like Kanye? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. It's something about someone who just doesn't care, who just say what they think. And even if I don't agree with half the stuff that this dude says, but I would love to sit him down with Barack and Francis and see where the conversation goes, because I don't know, it's like, anybody that can say the things he says, but also make a song like Jesus Walks. And I'm just like, dude, like I've been to one of his concerts and he had a whole group of people. And I don't even know if these people really even knew who Jesus was. They were and everybody was screaming Jesus Walks. And it was not in a church. And I'm just like, dude, do you realize the influence that you have on people? Like these people were just saying whatever, and now they're all saying the name of Jesus. And it's just like, and I don't know, like, I think maybe you were whatever, I just think that somebody with that type of influence on culture, I would love to sit down and talk with him, but also in a setting with other guys too, who I feel like are very, respectable. I think it'd be a cool conversation. I'd love to see where it would go.
I would turn the microphone on, and I think I would just listen. It would be fascinating to be with those three just alone. Let me finish with this, and then we ask this to all of our guests, Jordan. I know so much happening in your life, so much about to happen in your life, both on the field, certainly in your marriage and the new baby on the way. What are you learning from God during this season of life? What is God teaching you right now?
I would say, number one, that it's not about me. And that's the biggest thing, I'm not going to lie, man. Like when you're planning charity events and, you're training for a season in NFL and all, it's kind of easy just to be like, yo, I'm doing so much. Everybody just get away, and it's so easy to kind of only see your world and start to feel sorry for yourself. I've gone through an injury before now, and it's just like, there's so many things that just make you start to just be like, okay, how can people make stuff easier on me? Nobody knows kind of what I go through, this and that. And I think there are times where you need to say, okay, everybody needs to chill out, because maybe you need that alone time with the Lord. But those times when it's just you feeling sorry for yourself. And so just, man, about to be in a situation where I'm a father, having a wife and Shayna who not able to work right now because she has to, because she is carrying the baby. And being on a team that praises man, just come in and do your job. This isn't about you. This isn't about, making your name great. It's about you doing, what's best for the team. And then just really growing in my faith. That's going to be the main thing that constantly gets reiterated. You guys are, the increase. What's that verse from? Is that, that we may, decrease and that he may increase. And that's kind of that reality is coming to the forefront more and more in my life. The one last thing, it was just so funny because this sermon I listened to this morning was great. Francis mentioned something. He said, we played this game called Simon Says back when we were young. And if Simon said do something, you would do it, and that was the game. Or he said even dealing with his daughter, he'd be like, hey, if I told you to do something, he would tell his daughter, hey, go clean your room. And she would say, I cleaned it in my heart. He's like, that doesn't count. And he's like, but how many times do we do that to the Lord? When he's told us, verbatim, to do something. But when it comes to Christianity, we kind of just write off, well, as long as you kind of believe it in your heart, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? And so it's kind of just one of those things, I'm really coming, face to face with, God's telling me some things to do. I need to go do it. He needs to increase and I need to decrease. And just it not be about me, not be about my comfort, not be about, what I want, but about what he wants. And it's hard because when you'll bring up certain topics and people who are even Christians will be like, no, that's too risky, don't do it. But it's I'm not living for you, And so that's the biggest thing, man. I'm glad I have a wife who who loves me and loves the Lord and knows that when I hear something from God that I'm going to want to act on it. And she trusts that. And it's just awesome having her by my side, too. So I'm really looking forward to what God's going to do next in our life.
He is Jordan Matthews, New England Patriots wide receiver, getting ready for the 2018 season. Jordan, we wish you nothing but the best. We'll catch up with you again soon, and thanks for joining us here on the podcast.
Yes, sir.
Good stuff there from Patriots wide receiver Jordan Matthews here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. I really loved talking to Jordan. I loved his heart for people. I loved how simple he kept it and some of the answers that he gave me as far as just ministering and doing life to people. I love the story that he talked about with the FCA and the Vanderbilt football program that he was starting a Bible study up in James. And then, originally he was thinking that it wouldn't be able to continue, and it's continuing without him. And that's the whole point of being a believer, being a follower, being a disciple of Jesus Christ, is to do life, do ministry, have conversations, just building community with people, equipping them, showing them, loving them, serving them, teaching them. And then it's their turn to go out and minister and serve and teach to others. And Jordan is doing just that. Excited to see his impact on the Patriots, not only on the field. Tom Brady, as we know, when he's throwing the receivers, man, he's just the best there is. And I hope Jordan has a phenomenal year on the field. But the impact that he can make off the field in the community, both with New England and in the NFL, that will have longer lasting implications. And I think he'll do a wonderful job with that. We wish him nothing but the best. We wish his wife Shayna nothing but the best as well, as their baby boy, their son, is due at the end of August. So we're very excited for them about that as well. And just thankful for them and thankful for Jordan for being here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. We are thankful for you for listening, and we're also thankful to Compassion International. Go to compassion.com/sportspectrum. $38 a month. It's the best $38 you will spend every month. Releasing a child from poverty. 1.8 million children around the world have been affected and impacted by the great work at Compassion International. 150,000 children, 150,000 children chose to follow Jesus Christ in the last year alone because of people like you sponsoring children through Compassion International. Go to compassion.com/sportspectrum. Sponsor a child today. You will not regret it. I promise you that. Thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast. Email me, jason@sportspectrum.com, if you have any questions or any guest ideas for the podcast. You can also reach us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook as well. All of our podcasts are found over our YouTube channel as well as sportspectrum.com. We would love to hear from you. And take a screenshot of this podcast, maybe on your phone, and tweet it out or put it on Facebook or put it on Instagram. Let people know about the podcast. Let people know about the stories that you're hearing here on the intersection of sports and faith. We would be so grateful. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time right here on the Sports Spectrum podcast.